Welcome to my latest YouTube video. I'm going to follow up the last video, which was the first of a series, which I'm going to highlight various chapters of my new book, The Human Magnet Syndrome, the Codependent Narcissist Trap. My goal is to give important information to my YouTube subscribers and viewers that is not available on the internet. So my second book is not the same as the first. In fact, it has about 125 pages of new content. And I'm going to share with you, like I did the last video on the codependency baton family generational issue, I'm going to share with you some material on gaslighting. Now, I'm excited to talk about gaslighting because it's all over the internet. And it amazes me, as much as this topic is almost viral, there's very little clinically valid, research-driven data or information on the subject. Now, I don't profess to say, hey, I've done some research and I have a whole university behind this project. But I do promise you that my information, my conceptualization, my understanding of gaslighting is based on this psychotherapist's clinical understanding of it, both as a victim and a practitioner of over 30 years. So let's get right down to it. Gaslighting is a very despicable form of mind control. Some people consider it brainwashing. The two are very similar. Although the two get confused frequently, they're very different. Brainwashing is an overt strategy where the perpetrator is not trying to hide what they're doing and their intentions. We've seen some movies, we might have read about it. The famous examples of brainwashing occurred in the Korean War with the prisoners, where the North Koreans and the Chinese the Chinese fighting with the North Koreans would brainwash American prisoners to try to change their belief systems, their loyalties, their personality. And this was done methodically and systematically, and it was hammered in them day in and day out. And I promise you, those who were brainwashed knew it until they were brainwashed, and then they lost their individuality. Gaslighting is much different. Much, much different. It is a furtive, covert, secretive, manipulative, mind-bending strategy that pathological narcissists undertake in efforts to control, dominate their victims. Gaslighting is so different from brainwashing in that it is secretive, it is covert. The gaslighter lurks in the shadows. More often than not, they are what I call pathological narcissists. And that is someone who has a borderline personality disorder, a sociopathic personality disorder, or a narcissistic personality disorder. These are folks who scheme a plan to entrap a codependent or someone with self-love deficit disorder, to entrap them in a relationship by taking their power away. And the way they take their power away, their sense of control, is to turn themselves against themselves, to make them believe that there is something wrong with them, something that is either slightly real or completely made up. Now, the goal of the gaslighter is to take something that is believable and expand upon it and build upon it and convince the prey, the victim, that they have this problem and it's much worse than they really thought it was. Or In many cases, the gaslighter creates the illusion or sets up the environment to make a person think they have a problem that they never really had. So let's use moderate to mild anxiety. The codependent with mild to moderate anxiety falls in love with the narcissist, the human magnet syndrome. We know how that goes. And the narcissist, the pathological narcissist, wants to make sure that they are never going to lose control of the codependent. And these are the worst of the narcissists because they will bend the codependent's reality, their thinking, their emotions. They will create this very detailed, methodical plan to make them believe that this problem, we're going to call it anxiety, is actually worse than it is. And not only will they keep reminding themselves, reminding the victim they have anxiety, but they will set up the environment to prove to the codependent that their anxiety is getting in their way and causing problems. Now this is pretty diabolical because the goal is to pretend to be empathetic and altruistic, pretend to be understanding, but all the while is keep setting up the environment to make that codependent feel more and more anxious, to remind him or her that she's anxious. And eventually to overwhelm that person with this, what I call inculcated belief, or this implanted belief that they are much worse than they really are. And what makes it horrendous or horrible is that the codependent starts to identify with the implanted narrative. What was only mild to moderate anxiety what was only mild to moderate anxiety has become severe, debilitating anxiety. All the while the codependent is being manipulated to believe that their anxiety is problematic, has many consequences, the narcissist pretends to be supportive, but in the background, they are turning the outside world away from the codependent, or they are turning the codependent away from the outside world, because the gaslighter has to be secretive. He has to be behind the shadows. So how do you do that? You have to first create this narrative. You are ugly, and everyone will think you're ugly and no one will love you. You are stupid. You are so stupid you'll never get that job. You are fat. You are so fat that no one will ever date you. You are so insecure and your self-esteem is so horrible, who would ever want to be your friend? So once they inculcate the codependent with that narrative and they pound away at it, and they do it in a way that's not very obvious. They don't just, they are so slick. They keep reminding the codependent as if they're pointing it out. See, you're so anxious and, I want to help you, but that explains why you're having problems working. Maybe we have an explanation why people don't like you. But I like you, I love you, and I always protect you. See, that's the mind bending, where the narcissist not only inculcates the codependent with the narrative, shows them reasons to believe they have the narrative, proves to them that they have the narrative, but then they act like they are the protectorate, the nice person, the person that will never leave them. So the codependent believes that the person who is messing with their mind, they believe that they're the only ally. And that is when the narcissist has their hands across the codependent's throat and they start to choke them. And all the time, the codependent doesn't know. So how does this diabolical narcissist pull this off without anyone knowing? See, that's That's what makes this extremely creepy. They start isolating the codependent. Gaslighting requires isolation. You have to isolate the codependent by making them believe no one loves you. I mean, you're so anxious, and who wants to be around a person that's all anxious all the time? Or so they believe that people who haven't called them, for whatever reason, good or bad, are doing it because of reasons that are part of the narcissist narrative. And in the background, the narcissist is turning people against the codependent by playing that. It's called triangulation. It's pitting one person to another. So to the sister who calls a narcissist, to the sister who calls a narcissist and says, "Hey, what's going on? With your wife? She's not talking to me." Well, the narcissist will start lying and say to the sister, "Well, she doesn't really like you that much." My point is, they are very scheming and mischievous in the way that they package the person's relationship. They have to cut off ties. And either they're going to make that person be mad or hurt and not want to talk to the gaslit, or they're going to believe something like, my wife, because of her anxiety, she has been told by the doctor that she can't talk to anyone, and I'm taking care of her. So my point is that they're going to do anything that they can to isolate the codependent. They will cut off their psychotherapy. They will talk to them about why they should stop taking medication. And that seals their fate. If they should have a psychological disorder and the narcissist gets them to stop taking their medicine, gets them to stop going to therapy, essentially cutting them off from the outside world and giving them the treatment that for only a mild to moderate problem, then this problem that was never really that bad starts to escalate. And the narcissist turns that against the codependent and uses that as proof. So what happens is, just going to go through this, I'm going to summarize this. The narcissist inculcates or implants narratives in the codependent that are believable, that are based upon something that are acceptable, something that was really once a problem, a mild problem to a moderate problem, so that they can see and identify it, whether it's their self-esteem, their body image, it is a psychological problem, and they start manipulating the environment so that the codependent experiences this problem and experiences it frequently. And then they remind the codependent, "Hey, this is a problem. Look at this. Look what's happening." They're constantly showing them evidence of this problem. And over time, they prove to them that the problem is getting deeper and deeper and more out of control. And as the codependent not only witnesses this problem and starts to identify with it, they start to lose hope that it ever is going to get better because of the brainwashing of the gaslit message. You have no control over it. I will protect you. The medicine's not working. The therapy's not working. So at the end of the day, the codependent is trapped. When you cut the codependent off from their emotional self, you strip them of a reality-based idea of who they are and what's wrong with them. You take away outside resources. You take away friends. You take away family. And they believe that the only person that's going to take care of them and love them is the person that's gaslighting them. What often happens in these situations is once the codependent is fully gaslit, that is when the narcissist starts to act out without impunity. For example, they might start having an affair. They might start losing control of an addiction. And when the codependent experiences this, they're either so gaslit that they maybe cause the problem, which is hard to believe, but certainly happens, or they're scared to death to say anything because this wonderful, protecting narcissist, they don't want to do anything to scare him away or her away, because who would take care of them? Because at this point, they have no one. They're completely isolated. And they have to hang on to the person that's hurting them, who they know is hurting them. Another example is they get same situation where the narcissist gets caught doing something, and the gaslit codependent says, why are you having an affair? I can't believe you're doing this. Well, that's when the narcissist really turns up the heat on the gaslighting narratives, and they say, you already know that you're having problems with your thinking. You already know you have delusions. You already know you're insecure. This is all you. And they turn it around and make the gaslit person doubt their own reality. And that's not a stretch. That's not a stretch, because their mind has been so altered that they have been rendered so insecure, so isolated and so dependent that they don't even have the energy or the emotional fortitude to fight back with another more plausible version of reality. I'd like to add, and it's a little bit out of order, when the gaslighter manipulates the environment, they have to take away not only relationships or resources, and often this is making them financially dependent on them. And that's a very powerful part of the gaslighter's plan. Get them to stop working, either get them fired by manipulating them into behaving in a way to get fired, or talk them out of a job. Or this could even include moving them way out into the country where no one can connect with them, their friends and their family. The bottom line is, and I want to wrap up with this, the bottom line is that gaslighters will do anything in order to turn the codependent's mind against itself, so that they have no capacity to fight back with the inculcated or gaslit version of the reality that has been slammed on them. And when you take away someone's reality and they believe what was hammered into their brain, and that becomes a reality, then it's a very scary, scary situation. And it's very sad. And there are so many codependents out there. Many, I hope, are watching this video who are going to see this and understand you got to stand up. You got to find a way out of the psychological circus. You got to find a way to escape the prison. Find a resource, a person, a family member, someone, and go against the grain of your thinking. Just do it for me. Do it for your best friend that you used to have, for your sister. Just trust something in the past that was real. Just trust that. Throw away some of these thoughts that have been pushed on you just for a day, and make a phone call. Because people are out there that want to help you. They need to rescue you. And you might be the only person that's going to be able to make that happen. Okay. This is a very serious subject, and I hope that you learned a little bit about gaslighting from this video. I talk about it extensively in my book, The Human Magnet Syndrome, The Codependent Narcissist Dance, as well as I talk about many, many other topics. Next week, I will be reviewing a chapter. Next week, I will be reviewing more content of the book. So I hope I'm interesting you enough to maybe buy a copy. But if not, I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you know anyone that's gaslit, or if you are, we need to save some lives, whether it's yours or someone else. So you take care, Thank you for watching my video, and I hope you all are well. And never forget the precious nature of yourself and the importance of self-love. Because if we're going to solve this self-love deficit problem, this codependency problem, this human magnet syndrome problem, we have to understand self-love is the antidote. Okay, bye-bye.